Welcome to another episode of BFF, a show where two best friends review movies because fan friction. We're your hosts. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Joe.
And this is a very special episode of BFF.
We weren't really sure what to watch of the three movies that we posited to you as we're about to talk about here.
Yeah, we weren't sure because it was three movies that we didn't know a whole lot about, so we're like, let's just put it out for a vote because we don't know which one's the most embarrassing not to have seen.
Yep.
And the choices were Silent Running, which I had never heard of before.
No, I thought it might have been like a submarine movie.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
The second choice was Witness, which I kind of had heard of before. I want to say through The Simpsons or maybe The Critic or other pop culture things.
It's got one of those like one-word titles though, so like there's like thousands of movies just like it out there. So I'm pretty sure there's also a movie called Witnesses somewhere or something like that, and
maybe that's the mockbuster version trying to capitalize on
the direct-to-DVD in Walmart the week it comes out in theaters.
And of course the one that won the poll, which kind of surprised me as I had heard nothing about it, was Regarding Henry.
Yep.
So this episode exists in a universe where fan fiction has already occurred because we needed to wait for the poll until all the choices were revealed.
Yep.
So we do know some things about this movie, but you know, when you're in the middle of fact checking, you don't always hear everything that's said. So I'm still looking forward to watching this. And so we're going to go do that right now.
Yeah. And we're back. Movie was really good.
Yeah, very enjoyable.
Surprisingly good. Like, I expected it to be a well-crafted movie, but, like, dramas really aren't my thing. And so when I ended up finding a little more humor in it than I expected, that was a big plus for me.
I was also surprised at how much I like this movie because, like you said, dramas aren't really, like, you know, my thing as well. I'm so used to seeing Harrison Ford in action movies, whether they're Star Wars or Indiana Jones or even something like Cowboys and Aliens. So seeing him dressed up as this slick corporate lawyer was just very
unsettling,
but and just the way he's characterized at the beginning of the movie, it made me wondering, okay, what are they setting us up for? Like, he's so, like, obsessed with his job and, like, moving meetings around and distanced from his wife. And he's so mean to his daughter because she spilt grape juice.
Yeah.
And he scolds her. And then when he tries to apologize to her later, it's not even really an apology. It's just, like, you should know better. And she's just giving him this look like, okay, like, whatever.
Are we finished here?
Yeah.
So the initial crisis point, though, is when he goes out for, like, a pack of smokes or something. And he ends up, like, basically interrupting a robbery in progress.
Yeah. By
Tybalt, a.k.a. Luigi Mario, before he found his older brother Mario, a.k.a. John Leguizamo.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, wow, that's John Leguizamo.
Like, we had a moment where it was like, is that John Leguizamo? And then he said something, we're like, that's John Leguizamo. Which is one of my biggest gripes about this movie is, like, when he gets shot, it's like they're like, this isn't an action movie. We don't need to spend any amount of special effects on people getting shot. So he gets shot in the torso first, and all that's there, it's like a red pen sprung a leak in his shirt because there's no hole or anything. It's just you know.
And he has a very interesting reaction to being shot as well. Like, I guess it's supposed to be more realistic, but it came off as comical.
Yeah, like, I think it's supposed to be him going into, like, shock from being shot. But at the same time, there was the most shocking thing about it was he just kind of chuckled at it. He's like, oh, I gotta go. No.
He's like, wait a minute, or something along those lines, like trying to negotiate his way out of it, and then that's when he ends up shot in the head and, like, falls against the door.
The shot in the head just looked like somebody just, like, dabbed some really heavy, like, some of that blood syrup on their forehead and just let it drip from there where he got shot. Like, gunshot wounds aren't a pencil wide. So, I don't know. It's silly that I even care that much about the special effects, but, I mean, if you're not going to invest, then why do it? Where it's very visible. But that's like my only gripe about this movie.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything to complain about in the movie. I actually thought that, like, not really a subplot, but, you know, he is this lawyer. He is presumed to be the breadwinner of this household, and I kept thinking immediately, like, the cost of care that he is going to have because he has this debilitating brain injury is going to be, like, more than, like, you know, like what any kind of medical insurance is going to cover, and his wife doesn't work and he can't work, so like how are they going to pay for all of this? You see hints of this in the movie where they ask the wife, played by Annette Bening, like, okay, how are you doing? If you need help, let us know. And they talk about her trying to like get her real estate license again and all sorts of other things, and it's never like hitting you over the head with, man, we're gonna have to like, you know, give up all of this money and give up our lifestyle, but it's more they let you as the audience figure it out for yourself by what's happening in the movie.
Like I think Goodfellas does a more prominent job of hammering home the fact that that since he's the breadwinner and all that other stuff, because I think she even talks about how like there's no money in savings, they've just kind of been living kind of paycheck to paycheck. They have some investments, but that's not really enough to make up for it, and all sorts of stuff. The kid even brings up like my friend at school said that the way we spend money, we're going to be homeless in like 6 months or something like that. Yeah, there's little tidbits here and there, but they never exposition you into it, which is really nice.
Yeah, I like how they, like when she decides, like, we need to sell our house, but it's, like, you know, this one's too big. Like, it's probably a hint that, like, okay, we need to be living more within our means.
Yeah.
And instead of taking a driver to go pick him up from the hospital, they have to take a taxi, and it doesn't hit you over the head. There's never a line that says, oh yeah, we have to take this taxi because we're trying to save money. It just lets the audience figure it out for themselves, and that's what I like about older films, is they don't just hand you everything. Like, you get to draw your own conclusions from the information that's presented.
Yeah, and they do it throughout this movie. Just his progress, they kind of show you that it's slow, but strong enough that you can kind of see what's happening.
Yeah, going back to the way he's portrayed in the beginning, because at first I was thinking, is this supposed to make us feel more bad for him that he got injured, because he's not really a nice guy, so we should probably feel bad for anybody that has a debilitating brain injury. But then of course it's to really contrast how that brain injury has changed his personality, because before, like, he was really, you know, a jerk, and he was real upset about this table that they ordered that got delivered, and it was the wrong one. It's this turtle pattern, and he's like, that's ugly, and you need to get this fixed right now. And then when he comes back home later on, he's like, oh, nice table.
Yeah, I loved that, and I think I even said that as they were coming home, like, I bet he's gonna like the table now.
As he's trying to reestablish his life, they let him come back to the law firm, but clearly this man cannot be a lawyer anymore. And he's going back through like these old cases, and he's like, but this is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, we shouldn't do this. And they're like, whatever, like, that's what got us, like, you know, our reputation, like, just forget it. And then he's not allowed to even have access to
some of his old cases.
And then when he first comes back, you see that he has this beautiful office suite where, like, his secretary is in one part, and he has this gorgeous view of New York City. And then later on, we see that he's kind of just in a regular office, and his secretary is just outside his door. And to kind of let you know that, you know, his position has changed at the office, because again, he can't do like what he once did. He's not that guy anymore.
Right.
And he has, you know, he probably has trouble, you know, even like he has to relearn how to read and everything. So I mean, like, this is a guy that has like overcome like insurmountable odds.
And it's not just insurmountable odds. It's odds that basically the doctors were telling his wife, this stuff's never going to happen. He's never going to be able to function again. Like they kind of assumed he'd be paralyzed for the rest of his life and he'd lose almost all of his brain function, all sorts of other stuff. But he bounced back almost fully. Like he's definitely doesn't have the kind of mental strength that he had before, but he's a whole person. He's ends up cooking. He makes strong decisions on his own and things like that. I mean, it's surprising. It's definitely like a rebound story.
Yeah, and he's definitely more slow cognitively, but he's not an imbecile.
No, he hasn't lost like his intellectual functionality, which is awesome. And the story is in general just a really good. It's not only like a story of like hope and like recovery, but it's also a story of redemption. Because he was a monster, and he starts to find this out throughout the entire movie. You had brought up the first case or that he starts talking about the case. The first case he decides to be like, hey, this is wrong, that he brings to their attention, is the case that he's trying in the beginning of the movie, where it's about a family is like suing a hospital or something like
negligence.
that for negligence, and they're claiming they told the hospital that he was diabetic, and the hospital is claiming that he didn't tell anyone he was diabetic, and he did, but there was no proof and all sorts of stuff. Well, it's because his law firm hid the proof. They never got it on record or something like that, and they just kind of let it happen that way. So yeah, it's interesting that this story is not just a story of recovery and like triumph of the human spirit, but it's also like a redemption story all in one, because he was a terrible father, and he and his wife were so distant, and they were barely even a couple. And through the course of him recovering, he
becomes closer to his family. He's so upset when he realizes that his daughter is going away to this prestigious elite boarding school. It's like, wait, like, why are you going away? Like, I love you. I don't want you to leave. And then the wife is like, but this is something that we decided on, and this is good for her, and we need to hold to our decision of, giving her this opportunity. And you can tell he's very upset because, like
because she's not wrong also. Like, it would have been good for her, but
like his daughter was almost like a crutch for him during this time. Like, she's the reason why he even wanted to come home in the first place, because he was really scared to leave, because he didn't want to leave his friend behind that had helped him recover. And then she teaches him how to tie his shoes, and he's like, well, where did you learn to do that? And she's like, well, you taught me. And then he's like, I want to go home. And
he remembers the gray carpet. There's a really crushing moment later. Because the first word he says after he starts recovering, and you have this long montage of him doing physical therapy and speech therapy and stuff, but the first word he says is Ritz, because he's asking for food or something like that. He doesn't like the food that his friend makes for him. And
his friend purposely douses his eggs in Tabasco sauce and peppers, probably trying to encourage him to say something, maybe to ask for water. As a catalyst.
Also, people do just have that on their food.
Yeah, but I think he was overdoing it.
Yeah, a little bit. So the first thing he asks for is Ritz. So he gets some Ritz crackers, because what do you think of, right? Ritz crackers.
Duh. And he paints all these pictures of Ritz crackers boxes.
Which one of those portraits you see in lots of places. The one that you see him painting at some point ends up on the wall in the law firm, in one of the offices or something like that. And it's really tragic, because later when you find out he was cheating on his wife before, he was meeting his mistress at the Ritz-Carlton.
Who also worked with him.
Yes, was another lawyer.
Yeah.
So it's that look on his face whenever she says, we're at the Ritz, and he's just like, oh. So, yeah.
And then later on he comes home and says I realized I was a bad person. Never admits to this affair, but let's make it work, because his wife had also had an affair.
She was having an affair at one point as well. So I think it's kind of that situation where they're just both
let's just clean slate.
Clean slate, because that's what this is essentially for him. Because he is not the person he used to be. He likes food he never liked before. He likes things he never liked before. He hates things that he used to love. He is, for all intents and purposes, a new person. which kind of goes into a negative aspect of this film for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had brought this up when we were watching it.
It's very much the episode of Futurama where Fry had worms, and when his wife loves him, it's her saying, "I love the person you've become," and that's like I get why that's like sweet for this movie, but in reality, that's like not a really good message.
Mm-mm.
Now, at the same time, the person he used to be was kind of a monster. So it's kind of okay. We kind of look the other way.
Yeah.
Also, it's a movie, and it was the late 80s, early 90s, and all that jazz. So whatever, it's a movie. But in reality, this is like deeply troubling psychological issues going on here.
Probably one of the saddest scenes for me had nothing to do with like him trying to recover or any of that, is when they went to their friend's housewarming party, and they all know that Henry and his wife are there, but they're saying all of this horrible stuff about him, his mental capacity, and some other stuff about their situation, and Henry and his wife overhear them, and then they get
it's not even over here. It's like they're like right here.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever the camera pans around, they're like a foot away.
Yeah.
And they're like,
awkward.
We're gonna go.
It's like, why would you? I mean, it's horrible that anybody ever talked about anybody, but you know they're there. You're not trying to be discreet. Why would you say something like that?
Because they're the kind of monster he used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to remember, he used to be the kind of monster that would let
they
a
all
man.
looked up to him.
Yeah, exactly. He was like King Monster, and they all shoved him down into a little tiny office somewhere from his big prestigious office because he stopped being the kind of monster he used to be. And yeah, they kept him being the kind of monsters he used to be. It's really depressing and really upsetting because I think to him he still thought of these people as friends and family, even though he didn't know them. But when he first got back, they were all like, you can come back anytime you want. We still have a space for you, etc., etc. So I think even though he didn't know them, he probably thought that they had his best intentions at heart.
Yeah.
That was not the case. Not even close. They were monsters. And they became worse monsters in like comparison to the kind of monster he was. But all in all, good movie.
Oh, very good.
Surprisingly good. One of the handful of times we've done a film for BFF that we were completely blown away with how fun this movie was. And it was dramatic.
Yeah.
But when I say fun, it's just like I had
enjoyable.
a good time.
Yeah,
I walked away from this movie smiling.
Yes, a good movie. They don't make them like this anymore.
They do not. They don't. No movie that I've seen recently has the heart this movie has.
What would you rank it?
I would give it about an 8. There's some little things like you had mentioned, the style. Bradley's a bit of an over-exaggerated character, but I get why. I know some people in the health medical field, and they're sometimes very outlandish characters.
Yeah.
And then the special effects thing from the gunshots, just one whole point for me. That just...
I was gonna go 9 out of 10. The special effects part didn't bother me, but just like the way his line delivery in that scene kind of was like weird. But overall, I really thought the movie was well crafted. I enjoyed it. It wasn't as like melodramatic as I was expecting from a film of this caliber. Like it didn't feel like Lifetime Movie of the Week kind of thing. I thought it was very balanced.
Yeah.
It wasn't schmaltzy.
No. And it very much is like a triumph of the human spirit type movie, and how like sometimes all you need is a fresh start. Feels like it should have been the tagline.
Yeah, maybe.
So next we have the fan fiction portion.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, we are in a universe where fan fiction has already happened.
Yep.
So we're going to pause real quick so that we can review that footage, make sure it's fresh on our mind, and then we'll talk about it.
And we're back.
This was a mystery round question, so none of our fighters knew each other's answers. And Jack's question was, what is the best performance by Harrison Ford in his 50-year career in motion pictures? And Jack made sure to emphasize that this was a performance question, not a best movie question.
Which sometimes it devolves into anyway, but the performance should be the primary focus.
Exactly.
Our 3 answers were Bill with Witness,
Eric with A New Hope.
And Tom with our selected movie regarding Henry.
Eric had a lot more to say about A New Hope and Harrison Ford's turn as Han Solo in that movie than he did about knocking either Witness or Regarding Henry, and then later on he admitted that he hadn't seen those movies.
It's still a solid strategy, even if you have seen the movies, just talk your movie up, because then the other people will focus on trying to tear you down than fighting for their movie.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of knocking of Han Solo, like saying he had chosen the wrong movie or that he hated playing the character, but it really was between Bill arguing about Witness and of course Tom arguing for Regarding Henry, and then each of them kind of giving jabs at each other.
Yeah, and for a lot of this similar kind of stuff, it felt like, you know, this movie's better, or he's better in this movie because it's more dramatic or it's more intense or whatever. But
yeah, Bill had said that Regarding Henry was painful and comical at best. And he talked about how awkward the movie was, and if you wanted to see a character arc of a character going from unlikable to likable, Harrison Ford did that better in the movie Sabrina. Whereas Tom really focused on the performance aspect, and he had mentioned that in the beginning that he took that to heart. And he did mention the realistic character arc that Harrison Ford goes through, and that's a 5-star performance that really hinges on his ability to sell it with not being able to speak throughout the movie, but really selling his emotions with his eyes. And he mentioned like several specific scenes where we see his pain and we see you know, the emotions that he's going through.
Just the struggle of him trying to speak, I think, is one good example of that.
And he even made a comment about how, like, if this movie made you uncomfortable, then it did its job.
Which is a fair point. Movies that have a point to say, a point to make about stuff like that, they're doing their job if you're uncomfortable.
At the end of the day, Jack had eliminated Eric first, and so it was really, again, between Bill and Tom, and they had both made notes about how this was something that kind of was different than what Harrison Ford had done at that point in his career, and even though Witness really is the launching point of seeing him as a more nuanced actor, Bill hadn't talked about a lot of performance elements from Witness. Tom did talk about more specific performance elements, so Tom won the point.
Yep. So next we rate this movie choice against the question choice, as we do normally. What would you say? What would you give Tom for his choice of Regarding Henry for this question?
Considering I had never heard of the movie before, but it's a really good performance, I would say he would get a 10. It's not necessarily the one I would have gone with, but that's only because I hadn't heard of it.
That's fair. I would go with maybe like a 9. And for me, what hurts it is, like you had said as a boon, that it was a movie you'd never heard of. To me, that kind of already knocks it down just a little bit, because there are plenty outside of Han Solo that we've heard of that he's in, such as Blade Runner. Next, we go to Twitter, where we asked, what's Harrison Ford's worst performance in a movie?
Yeah, I figured, why not ask the opposite?
Why not go just completely 180? Brian, at Hercules, says, trick question. Harrison Ford is great, even in terrible movies.
Yeah, we've seen that before.
That's
with
a pretty normal argument.
Yeah.
Even when he's terrible, you love watching him.
Yeah, like Cowboys and Aliens wasn't like a highly regarded movie. We really liked it, but I know
you can see our BFF on it.
I know a lot of people didn't like it, but like I loved him as like that. What was
Dollar
his Dollar?
High.
The name is so dumb.
It's so bad.
But yeah, he was good, and his son Paul Dano was so terrible, and he's so embarrassed.
Well, that's because Paul Dano was so terrible. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah, please, Paul Dano, I know you're watching.
Totally. You're one of our 4 watchers. No, he was fantastic in it, even as cheesy and bad as it was, and phoned in as that whole movie in general was. It was a lot of fun, and he was fun in it, playing like the not really villain, but kind of villain. Randall Sands, at Randall Sands, it's probably not his worst, but clearly it's not his best. Ender's Game. The man phoned it in the whole time, phoned the whole thing in.
The trailer looked so terrible. And we looked at the trailer and talked about it, and the kids are like, he's too old to play the character, miss, and all sorts of other things. And
I'm just going to say when the source material is as bad as it is.
There are people that like that book, but I'm definitely not one of them. I just balked at it the whole time.
Yep.
Jeannine LC at Jeannine the Bean said whoever he played in whatever Expendables movie that was lol very, very forgettable, obviously lol.
That's fair. I don't see anyone really committing to an Expendables movie. I always feel those are like let's just get a bunch of people they're going to recognize together, say some one-liners, blow some stuff up, and make some money. Like, they're fun. I'm not trying to say they're bad, but they are what they are. They're not like Oscar-worthy performances.
No.
It's not revitalizing Dolph Lundgren's acting career, unfortunately, because Dolph Lundgren can play anything. Eric Monroe at Koch 200. His deleted scene from E.T., he had a cameo as Elliot's principal after Elliot sets the frogs free.
I've seen that on the DVD for
Is it
E.T.
that bad? Because I
don't remember it being that bad personally, but like again, it was like one scene. He probably came in for like 4 hours to film it.
I kind of want to see that.
Oh,
like super bad.
Yeah, we have the movie. We'll watch it, or I'm sure it's online somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Tom Zambino at Road Raider 3 that I've seen Crystal Skull. He's just going through the motions, very Bruce Willis-like. And Raul also had mentioned Crystal Skull.
Yep.
Which I thought we would get a lot of more Crystal Skulls, to be honest.
Yep, me too.
That movie was terrible.
Very.
Nuke the fridge.
Nuke the freaking fridge. That's about it for Twitter.
Yeah, that's about it for us as well.
So,
thinking this might be the last episode of the season, depending on how things in Philly go.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
I'm not sure what our next fan friction's going to be, so I don't know. This could be it.
Well, you know what? We might do something fun.
Yeah.
Like, we might just do something weird, random, and fun. Would you guys like that? Maybe shoot us a message.
Yeah,
if you want to shoot us a message, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Drake Masters.
I'm at _Mrs. Davis.
If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. It's like somewhere down here. I'm not sure where. You'll find it. You know YouTube. You guys are geniuses. You're watching our show. And please follow the TUFF channel. You can find us on there doing this show. And
yeah, that's about it from us. We're not sure what the summer will hold for us as fan friction draws to a close, but we may put a poll out there to see what you guys want to see, because there's still tons of movies we haven't reviewed in a backlog format, or there could be some other things that we do. So anyway,
thank you very much for being with us, and we'll see you soon. Surprising, because I'm used to seeing him with like scruffy hair or just kind of mildly unkempt hair, but not like slicked back gelled hair.
It was definitely a different look for Harrison Ford. Most of the movies I've seen him in are either Star Wars or Indiana Jones or Cowboys and Atticus. What are you doing here, buddy? I love how they just have, after all this time, no situational awareness that we're trying to do something. They just don't care. No one wants to see your tail, dude. Go, go, go. That's not how you go.
He's like, no, that's how I get pets.
No, not on the keyboard.